Hi, this is Giuggio, and my presentation is Canada, Emergency Preparedness. Canada does not have very detailed disaster management policies. The government and provincial and territorial governments have all agreed upon principles set out in the Guide, an Emergency Management Framework for Canada. The federal, provincial, and territorial, or FPT, governments joined together to produce the Guide. It establishes a common approach for the various FPT emergency management initiatives. Emergency management in Canada adopts an all-hazards approach. An emergency management framework for Canada incorporates four major components: prevention and mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. In the past, Canada's emergency management was focused on two of the four components, preparedness and response. It is now understood the significance of incorporating prevention and mitigation to reduce the social, economic, and environmental costs when a disaster happens. This guide also incorporates an ever-changing environment and places an emphasis on adaptability and flexibility. Canada's implementation pattern is bottom-up. In an emergency, the local authorities at the provincial or territorial level are usually the first response. Canada's emergencies are most often local in nature. Should the need arise and more assistance is needed at the local level, the provincial or territorial government can request assistance from the federal government. The tiers of governance structure would start with the working groups on the bottom. The working groups would report to the senior officials responsible for emergency management, or SORM, and would submit proposals and report progress on their work. SORM has responsibility for action items and reports to FPT deputy ministers, who are responsible for ministerial decisions. The deputy ministers report to the FPT ministers, who are the top tier. House fires are the most common emergency in Canada. Most occur between December and March and are largely due to cooking, cigarettes, and candles left unattended. This is not a hazard you would think of as being the most common. Canada is in a precarious position right now. Their infrastructure is outdated and it leaves Canada very vulnerable to disasters. They are not prepared for a disaster, and it would cost approximately $1 trillion to update the infrastructure. It will take a very long time to replace the outdated infrastructure, and that is providing they have the money. Although Canada's infrastructure is very vulnerable to disaster because of negligence over a large amount of time, they are aware of what they need to do now to build. Canada has tried to involve their citizens to prepare themselves as much as possible for future disasters, as there is no denying the significant effect of climate change on Canada's weather. But the Canadian citizens feel as though it will never happen to them.